going to win today. Everyone says Jim Richards, but I suspect probably the reason that so big a crowd has turned out today is that Peter Brock renews his acquaintance with Holden. How competitive will the Holden be? Well, our own Niels on Wheels is out there to test the Magic V8.
Thanks, Mike. As we all know, touring car racing is really dull, but keeping the competition close is a very difficult juggle for Cams and the touring car entrance group. This fabulous sound that you're about to hear is the Mobil 1 Racing Peter Brock Commodore. Holden, like each of the major brands, has received some special treatment over summer. So let's go and have a look at exactly who got what from Santa last Christmas.
Last year's champions had everybody worried by the time the Oran Park Grand Final was run. The Nissan GTR crushed the pack, so it's been nobbled for 91. The GTR's vital statistics are very impressive. The high-tech six-cylinder twin-turbo produces a staggering 620 horsepower and through its four-wheel drive technology can put it all to the road. To keep the Nissan honest, it's been forced to put on 15 kilograms since last season. The Ford Sierra has lost some supporters this season. The Brock and Longhurst teams have jumped the Sierra ship, but this car can still win races. To address the imbalance between the Sierra and the rest last year, the potent little Ford carried an extra 85 kilos. This season, the weight penalty has been removed. In addition, the car can use a 6-speed gearbox, and with more than 500 horsepower and at just 1,100 kilograms, Ford fans can still look forward to some top results. In the sprint races last year, the ageing VL Holden Commodore didn't make the grade, but in each of the Enduros, the big V8 made its presence felt. For 91, the Holden makes a competitive comeback. The new shape of the VN penetrates the air better than the last car, and the numbers look much better. The new inlet manifold freedoms mean more power, and the once bulky Commodore has slimmed down 75 kilograms to 1,250. Later in the year, around June, a 6-speed gearbox will also be available to Commodore runners. Cast your mind back to 1987, and the car to beat was the JPS BMW M3. The nimble, fuel-injected BM was a giant killer. More recently, the car, in an evolution form, is still winning races overseas, and this season we'll quickly learn the M3 is back in a big way. Using the German rules as a base, the BMW now has more capacity and power, less weight and more rubber. This prompted the return of the factory-backed cars, and on certain tracks, these cars will be hard to beat. It all boils down to different winners at different tracks. The Nissan has great power and traction, but it's heavy. The BMW is light, but it's also light on power. If we analyse each on paper, focusing on power versus weight, the Sierra is still the package, carrying just 2.73 kilograms for every kilowatt of grunt, but it's hard on its rubber. The Nissan carries almost 3 kilograms for every unit of power, but weight and brakes are its weak point. The trusty V8 Holden comes in at slot 3 with 3.22 kilograms per kilowatt. And the new-look BMW doesn't look as strong on paper, but be assured, it's consistent and will wear down the opposition, especially on the tight tracks.
Very interesting results.
Not wrong, Neil, particularly if you're a Nissan devotee. Let's B&H BMWs. Alan Jones starts out at 12 in car 20. 13.21 Mark Gibbs. The GIO Commodore from 14.33 Bob Pearson. And rounding out the top 15 Steve Reed in the Lansvale Smash Repairs Commodore. Stand by for action. Jimmy Richards in the number 1 Nissan GTR and teammate Mark SKAIFE. The 91 season is racing, and it's Mark SKAIFE and Win Percy who just bounces out in between the Sierras and looks for third place as they come down to the left-hand. A crowd absolutely beside itself as they all go fighting for racing room through turn number 1. Now up towards the M's. And as you can see, it'll be Mark SKAIFE leading from Jimmy Richards. Next is Dick Johnson, then followed by Win Percy, John Bower, Glenn Seaton is the next one through. And a great start there by Peter Brock in 05 as they come up the back straight. Look at these two Nissan supercars just run away from the fleet.
Yeah, they really are. They really are missiles, these Nissans, streaking away up the back straight the first time around. Richards over 0.6 of a second quicker than Johnson in official qualifying. And as you can see, he's already pulling out a gap on this first lap. They are super quick, these Nissans.
Yeah, great start from cars 1 and 2. Jim and Mark getting away cleanly. Good start from Win Percy, who split the Sierras momentarily. Through the S's now. Tricky run onto the main straight. It's Nissan GTR 1-2, the reigning champion in the top spot. Win Percy in 4th position, splitting the 2 Shell Sierras. Then we've got Glenn Seaton. And quite a large gap back to the next group of cars. Richards, SKAIFE, gap back to Johnson, Percy, Bow, Seaton, a big gap back to Colin Bond, Kevin Waldock, Peter Brock, Tony Longhurst, Larry Perkins and Mark Gibbs.
I guess as we expected, coming down towards the M's again. And you can see Dick Johnson with Win Percy right behind him. Actually, Win has found himself in the middle of a Shell Sierra sandwich at this stage. Glenn Seaton sits just in behind Johnson and the Peter Jackson Sierra, or Bow I should say, as they make their way up the back straight again. One guy who apparently is having some problem, Peter Brock, who made a good start. He's heading up behind Kevin Waldock, I believe it is. Was position 9, has dropped a position or 2 there. Keep an eye today on the Benson & Hedges BMWs, Tony Longhurst and Alan Jones. Very warm day here at Sandown. If some of these heavier cars feel the pinch in the tyre department, I think we could expect to see the BMs in maybe the last 15 or 16 laps of this race.
Well, these BMs and the Mobile Commodores have run together for the early part of the race, at least. They are fairly close in qualifying times. And look at Win Percy. Splitting the 2 Shell cars, Waldock and Brock down the main straight.
Waldock's done a great job this weekend. He's been very competitive from the outset and been right up there amongst the professional teams. It's largely a privateer effort. He's doing a top job. It's the new BMW that we're looking at of Tony Longhurst. Not expected to be a force on this track, but both Tony and Alan are very confident that when they get to Mallala, Oran Park, Amaroo Park, Winton, tracks like that, the new generation M3 is going to be a very potent vehicle. Race cam with Brock. This is the back straight at Sandown, climbing the hill from 4th to 5th gear.
Percy, car number 16, just sits in behind the 2 Dick Johnson Sierras.
So that means John Bow's taken Percy, leaving him behind a little bit. Seaton coming up behind him. Imagine Seaton will be running up with the Shell cars, judging by their qualifying times, because the Peter Jackson Sierra split the Shell cars on the grid.
Percy is 5th on the racetrack at the moment, sitting in behind the 2 Shell cars. There's daylight between the 2 Nissans and the 2 Shell machines, let me tell you. Johnson in 3rd, Bowers 4th, Percy is 5th, Glenn Seaton is 6th. Then quite a considerable gap. But Johnson in 17 and John Bow in 18 running their own race. Coming down towards the M's again. Percy trying to stay on the pace of the Sierras at this stage, unable to do so and falling back into the clutches of Glenn Seaton.
As Jim Richards said earlier in the week, the still race the Sierra as the fastest car on the circuit in a straight line. But the critical thing with the Sierra and the enormous power output it has, being only a 2-wheel drive vehicle with slightly narrow rear tyres, is what sort of condition the rubber's going to be toward the end of the race. And that's when we should see the BMW starting to make a little bit of impression on these cars.
There's basically 3 groups of speed here. There's the Nissan in a class of its own. Then you've got the 2 red Shell team cars, the HRT car and the Peter Jackson car. They're in a group of similar speed, those guys. And then the next bunch are all travelling at another speed again, and there's 4 or 5 of those. It's quite interesting to see how they've divvied up.
early days in the Shell Australia Touring Car Championship. Glenn Seaton there. The number 30 Peter Jackson's here running in 6th at the moment. Seaton, of course, had a great performance here in the 500 at Sandown last year. Finished the season very, very strongly, looking towards taking up where he left off in 1990. So he's in touch with Win Percy and trying to get a little closer to the back of the two Shell Sierras as they go out of the M's turn and come up the back straight. Johnson going through, Bauer right behind him.
Glenn won the Australian Endurance Championship last year and had a win at the Australian Grand Prix, and was very strong here at Sandown for the 500k race. As we mentioned in the telecast opener, the new look rules for 1991. This is the VN Commodore, allowed into competition by virtue of a modification to the rules thanks to CAMS, because 500 of those cars have still yet to be completed, although production continues. But they were given a dispensation, they being General Motors, that if they could produce 300 by the 1st of January, then the car would be allowed to compete, thereby saving teams a lot of money having to run the old car for part of the season and then the new cars later on. So the Commodore this year is lighter, 1,250 kilograms. This is the Nissan. It's a tad heavier, but the cars were never down to their minimum weight anyway. I think the minimum now for the class is 1360. It was 1345. Quite an awesome motor car. 4-wheel drive, turbocharged, in excess of 600 horsepower, lots of rubber. A little question mark over the brakes at some tracks last season, but I know that Mark SKAIFE and the Gibson Motorsport team have done a lot of work over the summer period to try and bulletproof the braking system in this car. And I went down to the end of the main straight yesterday to have a look at the facts and see who was putting on the brakes where and how it was all panning out. And astonishingly, the heaviest car in the field, the Nissan, was nearly as good as the BMW. Jim Richards, a profile, 43 years of age, triple winner of the Australian Touring Car Championship and the reigning champion. He was twice champion in native New Zealand and winner of the Sandown 500 in 1989. He leads this race at the moment quite comfortably from his teammate Mark SKAIFE. And this car is certainly going to be the car to beat in 1991.
It certainly is, judging by the opening laps here today, although it is really early days for the Touring Car Championship. Haven't had a great deal of time for development as John Bauer slips inside team leader Dick Johnson. As you can see, Glenn Seaton has been able to get by Win Percy. We'll see whether or not Glenn can haul in the two Shell cars.
Yeah, Glenn's been very busy over the summer period, particularly with engine development with his father who builds the engine both seat. And he's pretty confident he's getting somewhere up around the sort of horsepower Dick Johnson's developing in the Shell cars. And if that's the case, we should see Glenn climbing on the back of these ones in a few laps' time.
The Sierras this year are back to their conventional 1,100 kilograms of weight, which is where they started from in 1987. Last year they ran heavy. They had to run 1185 to even out the competition as we take Dick Johnson race cam with thanks to Dunlop. And that's teammate John Bauer, car 18 in front, outbraked him at the end of the main straight the last time through. I believe the Shell Sierras this weekend are running the new 6-speed Hollinger gearboxes, same as the Nissan. Commodore has the Hollinger 5-speed box that's produced here in Australia rather than the Getrag European box these cars have run in previous years. Seaton, though, I don't think has the 6-speed this weekend. He's running the 5. And Johnson losing a bit of ground now to Bauer. Closes a little under brakes, but John looked to make a bit of ground down the straight. This gives you a great idea of the Sandown layout. Very tight and tricky in places, and a track that requires excellent power down characteristics from the car, because there's a lot of these sort of corners, tight corners, second gear stuff. You have to get power to the road, not cook up your tyres, and then you need a car that's quick in a straight line and good under brakes. They'll be trying to brake as deep as the bridge that's coming up from about 160 miles an hour.
It's interesting too, looking at the qualifying laps of the Shell cars when the Australian Touring Car Championship was run here 2 years ago. Dick Johnson qualified on pole with a 1 minute 14.43 second qualifying lap. And this year, 2 years later, we've got Bauer qualified with a 1:14.59. So it seems that even though these cars are under constant development, now they've gone back to the 1100 kilogram weight limit, they're pretty much where they were 2 years ago.
Well, with the trendy shades, Dickie Johnson.
Mind you, we've had one change in rules as we take Dunlop Race Cam again. There's now a 4-tyre rule governing Touring Car Championship racing in 1991. That's to say that there's one time qualifying session of practice. The team nominates the tyre compound construction that it wants. The tyres are marked, and then those tyres that you qualify on must be the tyres that you race on. And that means that you've got to be extremely economical with your rubber, make the right decision for the right tyre for the right job. Looks like he's lost the fastening on the fastening on the left front window there. Little plastics come adrift.
Thanks to Rush and Dunlop, we'll have a closer look for you.
Dick will be hoping that'll snap off, or the marshals won't like that, but it comes past a couple of times.
Well, it's not going to do anything, but you're right. Aerodynamically, you wouldn't know. Minuscule, perhaps, but it's been enough for John Bowe, whatever the problem is that Dick is having at the moment for Bowe to get away.
And while Bowe's been going away, Seaton slowly climbing onto the back of Johnson, so Johnson may have a problem here.
There's Johnson coming on to the start finishing straight. There's the good gap back to John Bowe with Jimmy Richards, the Nissan GTR twin turbo, doing it very, very comfortably at this stage of the race, and his teammate Mark SKAIFE runs in second. Let's check them out for you on the Shell race score. As we said, Richards the leader, Mark SKAIFE in second, John Bowe is in third, Dick Johnson is fourth. We're closing on them, and running in fifth is Glenn Seaton.
That Nissan had been waiting for a long time. Two of their cars way out in front.
We take our Nissan race cam, riding with Jimmy Richards in the number 1 car as he puts a lap on one of the Toyota Corollas. Makes his way up the back straight. So it's all running so comfortably today for Jim. Getting up beneath the bridge.
Nissan first came into Australian touring car racing, I think, 10 or 11 years ago now, with the old Group C Nissan Bluebird, and have worked their way up through a series of different cars, always there, always hanging on when perhaps their product wasn't the most competitive car. And then Nissan went the whole hog and built a car specifically for Group A racing. And what a weapon it's turned out.
The old Nissan Bluebird. I'll never forget the sight of George Fury flinging that around Mount Panorama.
It's pretty spectacular stuff.
Well, there's the gap. Jimmy Richards heads down Sandown's front straight. Spectators a little on the quiet side. They're not quite sure what to make of this. They come here with high expectations of seeing a strong performance from the Holdens, or at least Johnson able to get up and run with them. That has not happened.
It's 6.8 seconds from Jim to John Bowe.
So they come out of the M's turn. Jim leads, car length gap, maybe 2 to Mark SKAIFE, and I think for Freddie Gibson, it'll be a fairly happy day, well, at this time of the day anyway, Freddie.
It is at present, Mike. It's a long way to go yet, but we're looking good so far. Hoping to do the end of the day and do the same thing, Mike.
Hey, your boys are hogging the limelight here today.
Well, I hope they are. That's what we're here for, aren't we, really? And I think we deserve a win this weekend. I hope we can get one. We've had a few bad days, and I hope it's a good day for Nissan and for the boys, because they put a lot of work into this weekend getting the car right, and it's the first time here, and it's a pretty encouraging debut for the car, Mike.
No problems at all over the weekend?
No, not really, Mike. We've been trying to tune the car to the circuit. You must remember we haven't been here before, so it takes a fair while to get the car into tune with the circuit. It's been sort of pretty heavy late nights and that, but I think that at the end of the day, we'll be happy if we win it.
You're having a good day, Fred. You deserve it. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Mike.
Freddie Gibson. Gibson Motorsport, of course, taking care of the Nissan Challenge for season 1991.
Bowe still about 6.5 seconds behind Jim in third. Johnson's about 12 seconds behind race leader Jim Richards. And then it's a really big gap. We'll be able to give you an idea of the gaps here. That's Richards leaving the shop. Mark SKAIFE, there's John Bowe, still keeping touch and pushing very hard. Gap then back to Dick Johnson in fourth. And then it's real daylight back to, I think, Win Percy now in 5th position. This is the product car, a Perkins Engineering built car, and there's Win Percy in the Holden Racing Team Commodore in 5th. Started out having a good scrap with the 2 Shell Sierras and Glen Seaton. For those of you that have just joined us, Seaton's dropped out. There's Colin Bond. And then the first of the mobile Commodores, Peter Brock. Gap then back to Tony Longhurst, and Larry Perkins is the next man through, and he's being chased by Alan Jones.
So the Commodores, outside of Win Percy, being hounded here towards the back of the field by the 2 BMWs, the M3s.
They've been having some problems just getting these cars dialed into the circuit. This is Alan Jones, 1980 World Formula 1 champion, driving the BMW M3 for the first time.
Oh, look at the move down here by AJ.
I think AJ's just getting a little bit of practice in for when the touring car circus gets to some of the tighter tracks, and that's when the BM will really come into its own. Fabulous little motor car, this thing. It's the Evolution version of the original M3, which Jim Richards used so successfully. Let's have a look at Alan Jones. He's 44 years of age, lives on the Gold Coast now. Of course, our Australian Formula 1 world champion in 1980, third in 79 and 81. He was also Australian GT champion in 1982, and his best result at Bathurst is third in the Tooheys 1000 in 1988. A great competitor, AJ, and loves his motor racing. 9th in the Australian Touring Car Championship last year with the B&H Sierra. Now aboard a different machine, the BMW M3, and Jonesy's very enthusiastic about this car. He calls it fabulous, and he says it's great to drive a car that really handles. He just wishes it had a little bit more grunt, and when he says a little bit, probably about 200 brake horsepower.
More.
And he was only saying yesterday it'd be marvellous if BMW would just bolt a turbocharger on this thing and you'd never see it.
Oh, terrific. They'll do all of that for AJ. The good thing about Tony Longhurst and Alan Jones and the B&H team this year will be their performances, something to look forward to, on the shorter tracks. Tracks like Winton, Amaroo Park, Malala. I would think certainly at Amaroo Park, they will be dynamic.
Yes, they'll be really quick. Perfectly balanced car, great brakes, plenty of rubber, usable power. We've seen how competitive these cars are in the German Championship. The Schnitzer team, these cars in fact performed very strong in New Zealand, and Manuel Piro and Roberto Ravaglio cleaned up at the Wellington 500 at the end of last season. So
Alan Moffat looking a little pensive this afternoon, setting it out. No drive in the touring car title during the opening rounds for Alan Moffat. Also the spokesman for the Australian Touring Car Entrance Group, Tony Longhurst, who we've been following, running position 8th on the racetrack at the moment. So forte of these cars was certainly going to be late in the race, as I said before. And here's Peter Brock,
really nipping up a front left that time over the top of the hill. There's a general shortage of race rubber around the industry at the moment. It's the start of the international motor racing season. Most of the factories in all brands are hamstrung to build complete tyres, and this team this weekend are running on the narrower tyres that are available to the car. That hasn't helped their cause, and I believe they're also running last year's configuration engine. They don't have the benefit of the extra 15 to 20 horsepower that the new manifold arrangement provides with the BN. It's been a slapstick effort to get 2 cars up in time for the Shell Series for 91. They're not really in a position to do what they'd like to do at the moment.
Longhurst nipping down on the inside. You'll notice the way that Peter got away from him in a straight line. Under brakes, though, the BM just gives the Holden a bit of a problem or two, and PB is just looking in the mirror now. He'll come out of the corner. You're pretty busy there, Pete.
I'm standing by.
Looks like the guy in the BMW is keeping you fairly busy, Pete.
Yeah, I've sort of, my brakes are a little bit going, and the right-hand rear tyre is saying, thank you very much, I've done enough Sunday driving at the stage, so I'm trying to understeer it through this corner, for instance, to take the weight off it, but I can look in the mirror there, and Tony is, here he goes. Let him go, because I was holding him up. But I changed back to
first there in anticipation. As soon as he did that, so for the viewers there, I don't normally use first gear on that corner, but at the moment I'm in a bit of a limp home mode, unfortunately. I'm still looking pretty good. I think the car's very nice, but the temperature is absolutely beyond the car's capability of getting rid of it. The camera might be able to register the temperature gauge, which is on about 112, so I'm a bit cautious about all that. But nevertheless, we press on. This is motor racing.
Peter Crompton here. Are you confident about the chances of the VN Commodore in the series this year?
Well, look, honestly, at the moment, this race is survival and fittest as far as I'm concerned. And listen, Crompton, this is a difficult corner to be talking to a bloke on. Okay, I've got around that one. And what I'm trying to do is save the right-hand rear tyre and at the same time save the brakes a little bit. I've stuck a bit of cold air into myself here.
The question was, Pete, do you reckon these things are going to be good as you develop them throughout the year?
Yeah, no worries in the world. This is a development exercise I'm involved in right now, as a matter of fact. And I just said to the boys earlier on, I wish I'd have just changed the stabiliser bar setting fractionally, but nevertheless, you know, I'll just press on. We're right. Whoops, you can hear the rear wheels looking up there. That's the brake bias I've got to the rear. I've done that to try and, reduce the amount of understeer the car's getting. So what I've done is I've just taken the weight off the front a fraction.
Oh, we thought it was just you young, impetuous blokes are hard on cars.
Yeah. But you know what, Crompton?
What?
I'm actually in a racing car.
You got one up on me. That's it, I'm not talking anymore. See you later.
Okay, mate.
Here's Colin Bond running 6th on the road in the Caltech CXT Sierra. Beautifully turned out car. Good to see Colin up there and running strongly at the opening round. Had a great year in 1990, winning 2 rounds of the championship at Lakeside and of course at Malala. Very strong runner.
They were 2 terrific wins, weren't they, Mike? Very well thought out. Planned the race to perfection.
Came from behind and each of them.
But you would expect that with a guy with his experience. Bondi's won just about everything there is to win in Australian motorsport. 3 times Australian Rally Champion. Won the Australian Touring Car Championship back in 1975. He's won Bathurst. He's also won the AMSCAR Touring Car Series. And it may have been a fairly long time between drinks for Bondi, but he's still quick and still loves his motor racing.
And the good thing is that he does so well for his sponsor. He's at every race, and he tries 100% at every race. So Jimmy Richards continues. Tony Longhurst is actually catching Colin Bond. We've been following Bond up the back straight. Tony's still a fair way behind him, probably all 20 car lengths, but he's been pulling him in lap after lap. And as we said earlier, keep an eye on the BMWs as we get into the past the halfway mark or towards 3/4 distance.
Certainly the strength of the BMW was unbelievable consistency. It's pretty well as quick on lap 1 as it is on lap 41.
Yeah, they're a great little car, and that's why they're so strong in endurance racing too. They're also very suited to these 2 guys because Longhurst and Jones are real chargers.
Good to bring BMW back into the sport after missing them since when? At the end of '88, I think it was when the last time we saw a factory effort from BMW.
No, good to see Ronnie Meacham and supporting the effort. Well, quite a variety of touring cars and marques. BMW taking on Ford and of course Nissan and Holden for the touring car title this year. It should please one person here, although he's not out on the track today. The spokesman for the entrance group, smiling Alan Moffat. Good afternoon, mate.
Hi, Mike. How are you?
You haven't rushed out to buy a new GTR, have you?
Well, they're a little bit hard, and the yen exchange rate is a little tough at the moment. If we could get a little better value there, we might think about it, Mike.
Your impressions of the opening laps and how competitive the Nissan GTRs are?
Well, they've worked, I know Freddie Gibson and the team have worked very hard over Christmas to get whatever their idiosyncrasies were last year. And I think in combination with their colleagues in Japan, they've been able to get some more reliable bits, and certainly reliability looking awfully good here today. Sandown should shoot them 600 odd horsepower up and down these long straights. If they weren't going to go well here, they're not going to go well anywhere.
Your appraisal of the car, maybe some of the tighter tracks, Alan, like Amaru and Winton, Malala?
Well, with Jimmy Richards and Mark SKAIFE behind the wheels, they're certainly going to go as hard as they're quite possibly capable of going, and I don't think the tracks are going to be any hindrances to them. The drivers will just excel harder, extend themselves more, and make the cars work harder. And in that respect, the more durable they become, the greater threat they are to everyone at Bathurst.
Quite so. Alan, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
Alan Moffat, of course, spokesman for the Australian Touring Car Entrance Group, one of our old pals, telling it like it is. And the pictures show you that today too.
I'm sorry, Mike. 17.9 seconds gap from first to third.
So Jimmy Richards continues. Here's Mark SKAIFE. I know we have a lot of viewers up on the central coast of New South Wales who support Mark SKAIFE, the local boy who's done so well not only in touring cars but also in Formula Holden last year. We've seen the other cars go through. We're looking for the gap now to third as Kevin Waldock goes through, and here comes John Bow, the first of the Dick Johnson Sierras, the shell car, number 18. Mark Gibbs right behind him in the GIO Insurance's Commodore. The Bob Forbes team. Good to see Mark up and running this year, and good to see Bob Forbes supporting him. We take Dunlop Race Cam, Tricky Dicky heads along the back straight up towards the bridge.
So Johnson in fourth position, and would have, it's better than the length of the back straight over Win Percy. He's virtually the Dandenong Road end corner as Win enters the back straight. Win Percy in the HRT Commodore in fifth. So 2 Nissans, 2 Sierras and a Holden making the top 5. And then Win Percy with about the length of the back straight on Tony Longhurst, who's now past Colin Bond. And just shows how consistent and how good that little BM's going to be.
Johnson heads down the front straight here at Sandown. He's got a clear view now, probably getting a bit of a breeze through there as Dick Johnson. The plastic is all gone, so he's got some breeze blowing through the car. Dick coming up towards the M's turn and closing on Mark Gibbs to put a lap on him.
Yeah, Dick's dropped back quite substantially from John. He may be carrying some sort of a problem there.
Heading along the back straight at Sandown, running in fourth at the moment. Not as he would like, I would suspect, but he's up there and still running in a competitive mode should anything go wrong with the front-running Nissan GTRs. And I guess in your case, Dick, that's only praying.
Believe how hot it is in here. It's just right on the target in Baghdad, I reckon.
Oh, now, no crook gags.
You'll have to wait for me, mate. I've got to push this button all the time.
Oh, have you? Sorry to do that to you today. How's the car feel? You're a little off the pace that John's running.
Yeah, obviously I can't keep up with him, but the car feels good. It's just, I know why he gave me this car now.
Dick, how are your tyres? Dick, Neil Crompton, how are your tyres now that you've got 85 kilos less to carry round?
I wish we did have 85 kilos less, Crompton, because unfortunately we've still got 50 overweight. But we'll get rid of that before the next couple of meetings. It might be expensive, but we'll certainly get rid of it.
Right.
All right, Dick, thanks for the chat. Dickie Johnson, car number 17, runs fourth in the Shell Sierra. The 5-time Australian Touring Car Champion. Here's Mark Gibbs in the GIO Commodore. Dick coming up to put a lap on Mark. As I was remarking earlier, Bob Forbes has undertaken a marvellous project to have Mark Gibbs run the rounds of the Touring Car Championship this year. A privateer, strongly supported by the GIO Insurances Group. Great to see. In the meantime, car number 1, Jimmy Richards, the Nissan GTR. Comes out of the M's turn, comes up the back straight. Just look at the speed of the car as he ropes in one of the Holden Commodores, one of the mobile cars. Let's check them out for you on our Shell race score. Race leader is Jimmy Richards. There you can see Mark SKAIFE is in second spot. John Bow in third. Nicky Johnson is fourth. And in fifth, car number 16, Win Percy. Back at Sandown, just a moment. The opening round of the Australian Touring Car Championship, sponsored by Shell at Sandown, Melbourne. Win Percy, Holden Racing Team, running fifth in the race at the moment. Doing quite a good job.
It's interesting to look at the performance of this car, Mike. We were here last year for the Sandown 500 where we have the benefit of qualifying tyres. The car did virtually the same speed as it did yesterday in qualifying, so that's how much improvement there's been in 3 or 4 months. Mid-15s was the go with the qualies on here last year for the 500k race, and mid-15s with a race tyre on here. So that gives you an idea, an indication of the improvement in the VN over the VL, that even with much less sticky tyres on, there's been quite a drastic improvement, but still room for improvement by the look of it with the Commodores to still peg the better Sierras.
Absolutely, no doubt about that. There's Percy going through, car number 16. As we said, fifth on the road at the moment. Win Percy, 48 years of age. The over 40 club thrives in touring car racing. These days, Win lives in Melbourne. Career highlights, of course, including the British Touring Car Championship in 80, 81, 82. First in the European Touring Car Championship, 84. Second in 86, third in 85. His first Spa 24-hour Enduro of 89. Winner of the Tooheys 1000 in 1990. Of course, with Alan Grice. And 8th in the Australian Touring Car Championship last year as well. Now domiciled in Melbourne, Win Percy. Of course, came out here originally to run with Tom Walkingshaw, and of course drove in the Jags at Bathurst. Delightful gentleman, and he of course is spearheading the Holden Racing Team's attack.
The car in front is Steve Reed at the helm, car 3, the Dulux Auto Colour entry, Lansvale Smash Repairs. Car just finished halfway through last week. The team have done a heck of a lot of work over the summer break to build up what was a shell. They got it very late in December, and they're having their first run in that car this weekend. Well turned out, looks the part.
Is Steve Reed doing a good job?
Yeah.
When caught him just at the end of the straight. It's good to see, and we should give the recognition to some of these privateers, the guys who hang in there. And I was going to say, but I'll withdraw and make up the fields. They do more than that. They go out there and try and race the factory guys. They don't have huge budgets. Here's another one. Kevin Waldock, number 28. He's running 10th here today.
Really impressed with Kevin's job in qualifying. He split Colin Bond and Larry Perkins to take 8th, and he's run very competitively all week, right on the money.
The guy, you watch his career in touring cars, it's very, very short, and his rate of progress has been fantastic. Last year he came 3rd in the Sandown 500 race and ran 6th at the following Tooheys 1000. Here he is putting in a superb qualifying performance, and obviously running on a lot less money than some of the other guys. So Warlock's a great performer, and he certainly deserves any success he gets.
He's the man behind the Playscape racing facilities around the country. It's a whole lot of fun to go to if you want to be a would-be Ayrton Senna. But the car's certainly going very well, and on a limited budget, the team doing an excellent job.
Kevin Waldock continues. And of course the motorsport continues on 7 next weekend when we take in the Oscar and NASCAR Summer Nationals from Calder Park Thunderdome. Check your local guides on that 2 hours of exciting motorsport coming your way. Also a team of American drivers out here next weekend. Brad Jones and all the Oscar boys and the NASCAR. In the BMW, car number 20 continues. Tony Longhurst getting closer to the back of the pack as well.
I have a feeling that Tony's just displaced Win Percy from 5th position. So everything that he said to me last week, that is Tony Longhurst, has come true, that these cars are just consistent and they will wear the opposition away.
And you're right, nearly has. He's taken that position and he's actually pulling away. So This is quite a surprising thing for the supposed power circuit like Sandown. They didn't expect the BMs to be anywhere.
Wind must have a problem. There's no way that a BMW sprints away from a Commodore like that down the straight.
Sounds a bit rough, actually.
Sure does.
Some sort of a misfire there with the HRT hold, which is a shame.
And looming in the background are those red, white and blue sharks from Japan.
They are making this look so easy. They really are the class of the field, way ahead of anything that's on the circuit at the moment.
Well, I reckon Tony will be grinning from ear to ear. They just want to get through these first 2 or 3 races and get them over and done with and put them in the back of their memory. And they didn't expect, I don't think, to be this far up in the field. So this is a fabulous effort.
And didn't Tony say all along, and Alan, that what the philosophy behind racing the BM will be just to break the opposition? And this is what they're doing. The thing is just so strong, they can fling it, throw it around everywhere.
When you watch the Charlie Lamb operation from Germany do that just week in, week out, with so many people around the world, they run hard and fast, they chew less fuel, eat up less brake pad, they don't eat as much rubber. You go somewhere like Bathurst, this car will do probably 2 less stops than one of the, for want of a better description, open class cars, and that makes a heck of a difference.
The 2 Nissan GTRs, Richards and SKAIFE, we're coming up to put a lap on Longhurst shortly. You can see them closing in on Win Percy as they come past the pit turn and work the long front straight at Sandown. So the man who runs 6th on the road at the moment, Win Percy, about to get the blow-by from Jimmy Richards. Right at the end of the straight. Jim will probably hang on until they get through this turn or work the back straight. There he goes. Straight down on the inside. Mark SKAIFE will probably take Win on the exit from this turn. So that'll give you an idea of just how competitive the Nissan GTR twin turbo, 4-wheel everything is here today in the opening round.
I was just thinking how that is going to continue, and I think the old Nissan that largely won the Touring Car Championship for the team last year, how much those guys developed that car. And I just think of the continual development process on the GTR, the thing's only going to get faster and faster, so it's pretty demoralising for the rest of the guys out there.
Well, Jim doesn't make a summer.
Yeah,
it's only Sandown.
Jim said yesterday, it's not that we've improved so much, maybe the other guys have gone to sleep a little on the plot. Made that point on a couple of occasions. But Freddie Gibson and I think Nissan, who have put so much into Australian touring car racing, deserve a big benefit, and it's going to come here today, about 6 laps remaining. The Nissan computer man sits there.
Showing more of the technical wizardry that goes on in a modern Group A touring car. That's the engine telemetry system, so the guy there can see everything that's happening inside the car. And it really is amazing technology.
So Jimmy, Mark SKAIFE, 1-2 for Nissan this afternoon. Come up to the left-hander. Now work your way up the hill, the back straight. Tony Longhurst just ahead of him, or them, I should say, in the M3 B&H car. Tony will only be able to hold him off so long, and I'll probably just snaffle him right at the top of the hill. Not this time. There'll be some celebrating down in the pits later with the Nissan team.
It's a bit of...
car was considered just a touch brittle at the end of last year when it came in, but they fixed all those problems. They've done a lot of development work. They went touring during the summer months, tested at 3 racetracks in a week. Ran extensive programs there to try and break the cars, and come up very, very well indeed.
The bad news for the opposition is that Richo now leads John Bowe by 35 seconds.
Good news is there's about 5 minutes to go. They won't have to put up with the pain much longer. David Sala and the Toyota going through. One of the small car class drivers, always supports the Australian Touring Car Championship, does a good job. You mind the speed difference between the cars, waving the 2 Nissans by as they close in now on Tony Longhurst to see whether they can pull him in before the top of the hill. So as they head up towards the bridge, watch at the speed here. Past Tony Longhurst on the outside goes Jimmy Richards. Caught that on our Nissan race cam.
If there was room, then the BMW would monster the Nissan here.
Yes, what's this?
There is room. cop that, Richo.
Just to have some fun.
Well, I understand that team manager Frank Gardner's in the pits at the moment. Frank, Neil Crompton here. Your boy's doing a great job.
Yeah, they're a great little car, and young Tony's enjoying himself. We usually start at the front and work slowly backwards, but today we've started to the back and worked slowly forward, so it's a bit of a change.
That's a worthwhile exercise in motorsport. Are you pleasantly surprised by this, or did you always think that the car would be as high as 5th?
We're always hopeful it'd be as high as 5th. I was hopeful we'd finish in the first 10, but it's nice to see that we're up there in 5th slot at the moment. We can only keep our toes crossed, it'll stay that way.
This must give you a great deal of enthusiasm when you get to places like Amaroo, Mallala, Oran Park, should I say Simmons Plains.
Yeah, I think I can afford the 10-year smile when we get there.
Well, Tony's certainly giving Mark something to think about at the moment. The Nissan blasted away up the back. What are the real benefits with the BMW from a race team's point of view, Frank?
Well, the real benefits of the road holding, the durability, they're 24-hour motor cars, they're well put together. The engineering's superb. Alongside the Nissan, you're lacking around about 300 horsepower. That's the only shortcoming.
Thanks for taking the time out and talking to us this afternoon, Frank, and we'll watch this race wind down, but congratulations to the team. They've done a fine job.
You're welcome, Neil. Thank you.
Frank Gardner there with Neil, and we echo his comments. They've done a great job here today, both Tony Longhurst and Alan Jones. Tony indulging in a bit of passing and repassing with the two Nissan GTRs while he could. As soon as they hit the straightaway, the twin turbo beasts were well and truly gone. Only a couple of minutes left to run in round one of the Touring Car Championship. Larry Perkins coming up now in the second of the mobile VN Commodores, car number 11, sitting behind Kevin Waldock as they go through there. Larry, the man responsible for the preparation of the two mobile cars. Perkins now running 14th in the field, so it hasn't been the best of days for Larry and Peter. However, they have done a great job in getting two brand spanking new cars up and running, and they will get quicker and become more competitive as the Touring Car Championship continues.
It certainly is a long process developing a new car, and there's only been about 6 or 7 week development period on this thing, so a guy with Larry's experience and expertise in engineering and in driving will bring these cars up to a competitive stage in a very short period of time. So Sandown is hello.
Oh, problems for Tony Longhurst, car number 25.
And what's going on here?
He's got a flat tyre, has he?
He looks to be sitting down on one side, though.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
And what a shame. We were just saying to Frank Gardner how great the cars were going. There's Jonesy, who's taken Longhurst, but Longhurst definitely in trouble here.
There's AJ swinging out past the pits. 1 lap remaining, so the final lap now for Jimmy Richards and Mark SKAIFE as they continue to set up a very spectacular 1-2 for Nissan and for Freddie Gibson. Gibson Motorsport here today at Sandown.
We've seen it before when teams really gel. Dick Johnson and John Bowe for a couple of years. Before that, I can remember the Moffat Bond Falcon team back in the late 70s. And here we are again, two identical looking cars, the Nissan GTRs, totally dominant at Sandown here today.
Well, I think that they'll be hoping for a 1-2 across the line, form finish for Nissan in front of the enthusiastic hometown crowd. The drivers were introduced here earlier. There was a big cheer for Jimmy Richards, very popular in Melbourne, very popular driver, and we're riding with Jim as he comes down to the right-hander, carrying our Nissan race cam. Banner day for Nissan. Could be the banner year for them in touring car racing. And coming out of the last turn, the pits are on the right-hand side. The throttle is all the way to the floor, and Jimmy Richards coming down to take the checkered flag. So the ex-Kiwi will lead them across the line. Richards 1, SKAIFE 2, a 1-2 for Nissan in the opening round hostilities in the Shell Australian Touring Car Championship. Splendid performance, power performance from these two. Rest of the field coming through now to finish off the race. Win Percy in car number 16, and Jim stopping to pick up the checkered flag. He certainly earned the victory here today at Sandown International Raceway. Tremendous qualifying performance yesterday, also along with the Mark SKAIFE. Here's recapping them for you on our Shell race score. Jimmy Richards, your round 1 winner. Mark SKAIFE and the Nissan GTR finishes in 2nd. John Bow, the Shell Ultra team, runs in 3rd. Dick Johnson is 4th. And rounding out the 5, Wim Percy, and we'll be back at Sandown for the presentations.